To make 4 at a time flying geese, you'll need 1 large square and 4 small squares. The large square represents the goose and the small squares represent the sky. I've included a link to the tutorial resources page where you can find a download with the size squares you'll need for the most common flying geese finished blocks. You'll also need a rotary cutter, fabric marking pen, Sharpie, an alcohol swab, quilting rulers, a cutting mat, some pins, and a sewing machine. Draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on the wrong side of each of the smaller squares. Place 2 small squares on 2 corners of the large square, right sides together, making sure the drawn lines cross from corner to corner. Pin the squares in place, then sew a scant 1/4 inch seam on both sides of the drawn line. After sewing a seam on both sides, cut along the drawn line, creating 2 intermediate units. Press the seam allowance towards the small squares or open. Place 1 small square, right sides together, on the remaining corner of each of the larger squares with the diagonal line pointing toward the seam. Pin in place. Then sew a scant 1/4 inch seam on both sides of the drawn line on each unit. After sewing a seam on both sides, cut along the drawn line, creating 2 intermediate units. Press the seam allowance toward the small squares or open and repeat for the second unit. You should have 4 flying geese now that are ready for trimming. Grab a quilting ruler with a 45-degree diagonal line that is larger than the size of your block. You'll also need a Sharpie. Mark your ruler with the smaller dimension of the block along the top and the larger dimension along the right side, the intersection of the 2 dimensions, and then somewhere midway between the top marking and the intersection. These will make trimming so much easier. Place the ruler over one of your blocks with the 45-degree diagonal marking over the top diagonal seam on your block. Move the ruler until the lower marking, in my case 4.5 inches, is directly over the lower diagonal seam. The upper left mark is on or within the edge of the fabric. The top right corner is over the top diagonal seam, and there is at least 1/4 inch between the peak of the goose and the left edge of the fabric. Then trim the right and top sides and turn the block 180 degrees. Place your ruler on top of the block. Line up the cut edges with the marks on your ruler. The bottom left cut corner should be at the intersection mark. The lower right cut corner should be at the lower right marking. The left cut edge should line up with the midway marking, and the top left corner should line up with the top left marking, meeting right at the point of the top diagonal seam. There should be 1/4 inch between the tip of the goose and the right side of the ruler. Trim the right and top edges of the fabric and your first goose is complete. Let's finish the other 3 in the same way. Nice work, you're done. Remember to check the description below for the tutorial resources. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider liking this video and following me for more quilting tips and tutorials.